The Deliberate Leaders podcast with emerging talent interviews professionals under the age of 40 who I deem as leadership badasses. My name is Anna Thiele, and I am the host for this podcast and the leadership coach here at Deliberate Directions. Let me introduce to you this week's talent. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the Deliberate Leaders podcast.
Hi, how you doing?
I am so good. I am so
Good.
glad you're here. So jumping in, first question, as a successful professional under 40, what is the biggest opportunity of growth that you face?
So I think the biggest benefit I have today is time. I don't have any kids or a lot of people relying on me to do specific things throughout the day. So I have time. And what I use during that time is I'm able to network and meet as many people as possible that are trying to do the same thing I am, which is just get better every single day. So yeah, having that time in my hands, I get to go out to lunches and go out to coffees. And I message a bunch of people on LinkedIn just saying, I want to network. And it's beyond real estate. It's beyond, oh, I want a transaction. It's more so if I make these connections with really successful people around my age or even older or younger, that I can continually become more connected to, that 10 years from now, I'll have so many of these connections that all of us will be at the top together. And it also keeps you accountable and encourages you to keep going after whatever dream that is.
When you say time, is it stuck in between the 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, or are you working early hours to late nights?
Yeah, it changes. So as a realtor, I work when other people don't. So a lot of that time I am working after 5 or Saturdays and Sundays when other people aren't working, so I can show them houses or just figure out answers to any questions they have. So most of the time, it is not just 8 to 5, not even close to that, because it can vary so much. Me and my partner, we got together and we wrote a timesheet actually of how we're going to lay out our day and how we should do it. And it's great to have there, but we go off of it all the time. So it's just more of a reminder that you should be doing these things every single day, whether you could get to it between the 8 to 5 or you have to do it after. But most of the time I'm having lunches, having coffees, and meeting people during the day that can. And then whoever can't, I'll meet them after.
Yes. So when you started being a real estate agent, did you realize how much like white space you'd have in between? And were you prepared to fill that with, I know you do videos or supplemental education or networking or?
Yeah, the first thing that I'm in a really good brokerage. I'll plug them in, Amherst Madison, they're awesome. But the first thing they kind of teach you is you have to have a niche. You have to have something or some way that people can find you and get to know you, get to trust you. So everyone kind of has their little niches that they do. I was not prepared at first. And at first, I literally just messaged as many people as I could on LinkedIn every single day because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't confident enough to make videos back then because I didn't know enough. So the more that you know, the more you kind of find your niche. And there's so many different areas of real estate. You can go into residential or commercial. And then once you get into that, you can get into duplexes or quadplexes. And it just gets more specific. And there's so many different avenues. You got to find your place. So as you find your place, you kind of find the ways to fill that void between the day. So right now, I kind of have it pretty set to what I know what I'm doing most days. And it is usually really full. Between coffees and lunches and videos and then random texts or calls that come out through the day. Like I got one today to show a house at 3:30. So now I'm showing a house at 3:30, but it just depends. And you kind of find ways to fill that as you find your niche within real estate.
Mm-hmm. What are 2 to 3 attributes that you assign to a leader?
2 to 3 attributes. So there's a lot, but I would say the top 3 for me would probably be being passionate. I think is a big one because I think that people follow someone who's passionate, and passion usually comes with a genuineness to it, to where you can feel it. You feel that they love what they do, and it kind of draws you in enough to where you start to trust them. And that's another one I have, is being trustworthy. So I think that's proven over time, and being genuine over time really proves how trustworthy you are. And I think that's why it's so easy to, let's say, follow someone on Instagram with 30,000 followers. They've obviously shown that a lot of people are willing to trust them and follow them. So it's easier to follow them as they gain that. And then the last one would just be motivation. Simply being continually motivated, never settling, and just going after whatever goal that is continuously.
Mm-hmm. Of the ones that you shared, which one best describes you?
I hope it's passion. I really hope it's passion, mainly because I love what I do. I have found the more that I dive into it, the more that I love it, because I am someone who believes that you should never have to worry about money. I think that money is one of the things that's one of the number one necessities in life, but it can just draw you back from the more important things in life so easily. So that's where my passion really comes from, especially surrounding real estate, is finding the ways that it's creating generational wealth for people. And, when you're making 50, 60K a year, but you have your house for 5 years and you find that you made another $20,000 a year because you own that house, and you can use that to take your family on vacation. You can use that to buy something that you've always wanted, and that's the real piece for me that draws it all together, is that real estate is a vessel to get generational wealth and have you or give people some extra spending money to use towards their family or whatever they need.
Yeah. Now that you've given us a picture of your ideal leader, what are 2 to 3 attributes of a bad leader?
I think the number one is lack of integrity. I think even bad leaders have motivation, to be honest. They just are motivated to lead people in the wrong direction. So it really comes down to lack of integrity. Not being trustworthy is a big one, but I think that's one where a lot of people are able to fake it long enough to where they do get that leadership, but you'll see it eventually. Everything comes to light. So lack of integrity, not being trustworthy. And I'd say another big one that a lot of leaders, or I'd say the number one they need, is good communication. So poor communication is something that can really draw a leader back. And that's a hard one to gain and have for a long time. And it's a lot more in depth than people think.
So much more in depth, yes.
Yeah.
Now knowing like good and bad, how does that influence your own leadership style?
Well, I think some attributes you kind of get while you're being raised and growing up. And then there's ones that you kind of find out that you're not as good at or you are good at. Like there's very natural ones out there. And I talk to my partner, Mike T, all the time. We talk about who's better at what, in what ways. Like I'm very numbers oriented. He's so good at talking to people, insanely good at talking to people. And I will watch him talk to people. Let's just even say an open house, and he draws down barriers so well and makes people their friend so quickly. And that's something I strive to be. I'm good at it. I'm not great at it. So that influences me to become better at being able to talk to people and draw people's guards down. But growing up, I got lucky that I have very awesome parents that have given me some integrity and taught me the right ways to go about life, where I've had those attributes for a while to where it becomes more natural. But there are things that I'm definitely not as good at that I'm continually working on. One of the number ones that we just talked about was poor communication. So communication is more difficult than people think because everyone sees things differently. I'll give one example. I was out with my girlfriend and it was her mentor, right? So I'm the third party in this, and she just invited me to come, and I came, and we had some amazing talks. It was awesome, but she kind of came to me after, and she's in a business role as well. And she's like, you kind of talked a lot. And I was like, did I? And it kind of drew me back a little bit. And instead of getting defensive, I looked back on the conversation and found that even though this guy he's older than me, he's more successful than me, that dang, I should have really sat back and listened to everything he was saying more than even just relating to him. It's not that I was trying to overpower him or say, it was more so like, oh, I've had an experience like that too. But it's not needed in some of those situations. So being socially aware of that, and that's one of the hardest ones to do, especially as a realtor who can talk. it does become very difficult, but it was a learning curve for me. And now whenever I'm in those conversations, I make sure to like pause myself. And when I ask them a question, let them speak for as long as they can.
Yeah. And just to stay curious about them. I think I've learned that through communication is, I can relate to a certain degree, but if I can stay curious about what I can pull from someone, even if it's someone that I don't think is necessarily expertise in where I'm interested in, they still bring value.
Yeah. And the more you dive in, the more you get. I actually, at Amherst, we have a lot of people come in, and one person forced us to do this. So this is one of the best things I've ever been forced to do. And instead of ever saying or relating to anything or say anything, you have to continually ask questions for 3 minutes to a person. So we got in groups of 2, and we'd ask them one question about like the market or something. And then it was more of, instead of like, oh, I feel that way too, or oh, I noticed this, it was like, well, why do you feel that way? Oh, what factors do you look into? And it got into the point where the more you ask questions, the more you got into, I ended up talking about like how they did yoga for 30 years and how much they love it and it makes them feel good. And I was like, I didn't know you did yoga, and this is someone I've worked with for a very, very long time. But just the idea of continually asking questions, you'll learn so much about someone.
All of this stuff that you've talked to kind of leads to the next question. Malcolm Gladwell, author of Outliers, believes that it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert on something. Are you working on the mastery of anything?
Working on the mastery of, yes. Yeah, I'm working on it. I don't think I'm necessarily the master of anything. And if I was the closest to anything, to be real estate, and I'm still so far away.
Okay.
There's so much to learn within my career. But yes, I am on the road to mastery, and I continually try to get better at that every day by putting in those hours. But within real estate specifically, there's just simply communicating and talking to people and sitting down and making people feel comfortable. So I do that. I have lunches, I have coffees. I call them first dates. I go on first dates all the time with random people. And it really forces you to learn how to learn about someone beyond the surface level. But even beyond real estate, I go to the gym 5 times a week. So that's something I am on the road to, but it's definitely not mastery, but even those simple things such as discipline and doing things every single day. To master discipline, you can't really take a day off. You got to continually do it even when you don't want to. And I definitely have days where I didn't want to do something, I didn't do it. So every single day I have plenty of roads I'm trying to master by just getting reps in those categories. So hopefully one of these days I'll be able to say I mastered one of them.
At least one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is more valuable to you, 10,000 hours or several years of experience?
I feel like those kind of go hand in hand
Tell me
in
more.
a way. Because even if I was doing 40 hours for 52 weeks out of the year in my job, that's still a lot less than 10,000. I know that. I can't think of the exact math right now, but it's not 10,000. I know that much. So
can I reframe it?
Yeah.
Is it more about getting hours super quick? Like if you were to work every single day, the whole sunrise to sundown, and then at the end of the year say, okay, I got all of my hours. Or take your rest days, take time to really dive into something, and then over the span of X amount of years, you'll then gain the experience.
Yeah, I think that goes person to person, but I personally do take my rest days. I'm going to Mexico in like a week from today, and I will rest the whole time I'm there. But before I get there, I will be cranking out videos, cranking out calls, having lunches, having coffees beforehand. But once I am there, it is a time to rest and reset. And I think that's person to person. Some people can keep going. Not that it's necessarily healthy, but they can do it, and they do it all the time. But for me personally, I do like to rest and reset. And I think it actually propels me forward in the end because my body gets that little bit of reset to where I'm driven again. Because when you're doing something every single day, it does get repetitive and exhausting. And it is hard to stick to that plan of, okay, make this amount of videos or make these amount of phone calls. And it gets, so yeah, it just gets a little too repetitive to the point where I'm like, I need the break, but then you come back ready to go again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you hear this quote by John Maxwell, what does it evoke inside of you? Feed your faith and starve your fear.
Feed your faith and starve your fear. The first thing that comes to mind. So feed your faith is just basically telling me to have more faith in myself or whatever I need to have faith in, just have faith in yourself. And starve your fear is don't give in to the fear. Don't give in to, cold calling. Cold calling is a good one because before you make a cold call, the reason you don't want to do it is because you're scared of what they're going to say. They're going to say no. They're going to cuss you out. They're going to not want to talk to you. But before every single cold call, I convinced myself that it's going to be the best cold call in the world. So I basically convinced myself to have faith every single time. And sure, I still get 30 no's and 1 yes or 1 meeting out of it, but the 1 meeting is worth it. And I think a lot of the times the things that fear you are exactly what you need to do in order to propel yourself forward. Like if someone asks you to have a speech and it scares you, that's probably a good thing. Practice and have some faith in yourself that you can give this good speech and don't scare yourself away from even trying it in the first place.
James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, teaches us that the most effective way to change your habits is to focus on not what you want to achieve, but who you want to become. So my question to you is, who do you want to become?
That is such an intense question. It is. I mean, it's awesome. And yeah, it's really got me thinking quite a bit. And it's just more in depth of like, what do you want to be remembered for, So I think what I truly want in life is just to be like trusted and respected as like a genuine source of information. Not even just real estate, but within life, in general. I want people to feel comfortable coming to me. I want to be able to teach people. It's one of my passions for sure, is teaching. So I just want to be respected in that way enough that they'll listen to my words and hopefully be a positive leader and a positive influence within my community.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin, so much for joining this deliberate conversation.
Thanks, Anna. It's much appreciated.
Each month, Deliberate Directions produces and releases episodes that showcase local Idaho gems, emerging talent, and business and leadership experts. We release these episodes on all major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're looking for more of a local, deliberate conversation, Deliberate Directions hosts a monthly book club here in Boise, Idaho. Those conversations inspire the conversations that you've heard here on the podcast today. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you join us for the next Deliberate Leaders Conversation.